Be alive. All right. Howdy, everyone. Welcome to Wild Wild Weiss, the community podcast for Calgary Weiss Schwarz. I'm today's host, IgorSquatslav. With me today on our first time streaming one of our podcast episodes is PlatPlat. And it's been a doozy, but we're going to make it work, and it's going to be a great episode. We're here to talk about just what we heard from the Bushiroad strategic presentation on the 8th of March, which occurred in the early mornings in North America. We'll be monitoring the chat as it goes, so if you want to pop us a question or banter with us, feel free to do so. Bushiroad announced a bunch of stuff on the stream. They gave us updates to both Neo Standard and the Standard ban lists. The fact that the Standard ban list is getting its first update in half a decade is pretty darn newsworthy on its own, but the new set stole the show. Here's what we got. We got Date Alive 2, Kaguya-sama, Love is War Season 2, Quintessential Quintuplets, the movie, Love Live Nijigasaki Set 2, but the most surprising set announcement was one that came totally out of left field. Disney Pixar. How surprised were you by this, PlatPlat?
I mean, I think I am just as surprised as everyone else is about this one. It's kind of bizarre that Bushiroad is just assembling the gauntlet of every Disney adjacent title that they can get their mitts on.
Does Pixar count as Disney adjacent now, given that...
Yes, it's not Disney adjacent, but
yeah, because it's...
neither is like the other two titles they have, but you know what I mean.
No. What I mean is that Pixar has been part of the Disney portfolio since like 95, right?
That's true.
Like,
no, like it is Disney Pixar.
Like, I think even Toy Story was a Disney production, so...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so like...
Either way, they're really getting that gauntlet full.
Yeah, and I think this is really cool because that actually gets us one step closer to the Mickey Mouse Weiss set, because we've gone from Weiss adjacent with Star Wars, which was under the the Disney umbrella when the Star Wars set hit, to Marvel, to Pixar. The last jump here is just to Disney original characters.
So here's my theory. All right, calling it years in advance already. So we're getting Pixar All-Stars. The Disney set is just going to be the House of Mouse revival. I don't know if you know what that is.
The House of Mouse revival. Where are we going with here?
Well, no, you know the House of Mouse. It was a show that they made just of taking like the previously already done animations of shows and made a new show out of it.
Oh, I understand
so it was
that,
like
yeah.
all the characters. Yeah. So since we have Pixar All-Stars, we'll get House of Mouse Revival, obviously. So that's my call.
I don't even know how to respond to that one, because honestly, I'd be okay with that. Because
I'd be fine with me.
I would happily build like a Mickey Goofy deck, but I think we're kind of getting off into the weeds as we usually do. But what given that this is Pixar All-Stars, have they said exactly what movies are going to be included in the set?
So first off, they've only confirmed Toy Story, Cars, and Monsters. It's not Monsters Inc. It just says Monsters, so it's kind of the umbrella there for each having their own TD. So it's unclear yet what's in this full set. So it could be everything. It could be just those three films. We're not sure yet.
All right, so we still have a lot of waiting, and it's funny that we're essentially getting Pixar Bunko after Marvel Bunko.
We got Marvel Bunko for sure. Now we're getting Pixar Bunko. You know, personally, give me one card of the short where the guy plays chess against himself, and I'm happy.
I'm trying to think of what other obscure opening animation from a Pixar movie that I would be 100% down to see.
I like the Birds on the Telephone Wire one.
That was Toy Story 2 or Monsters?
You're really racking my brain here. I think that was Monsters, but I'm probably totally off. The other fun one would be the Magician and the Rabbit short.
Yeah.
I don't remember what that one's called, but yeah, there's a bunch of bangers that could be single off cards, honestly. But
yeah, and I'm pretty happy with that too. Surprising, it's mostly older Pixar movies, so Monsters Inc. 2001, Toy Story 1995, and Cars 2006. While Inside Out, or as it was called in Japan, Inside Head, was very popular when it came out in 2015. Soul's not there. Moana is not there either. So Pixar could get a second set pretty easily.
It could. They could also just be in the base set. Like I said, we don't really got that information yet. But just going again here, it sounds like it might not just be the first movie of each of these. It may be just a combination or in the universe of. It's not really sure.
Yeah.
The biggest clue for me is just that they specifically had monsters, not Monsters Inc.
Right. So you could have like
So-
Monsters University or their TV show. Yeah.
Or just whatever spin-off material or original stuff that they decide to go with. I think it's just more so going to be in the universe of, not specifically the movie title.
Right. Honestly, I hope we get a card on Mike Kowalski's Big Dick car.
I think I'll pass the comment on that. For
But-
Mike Wazowski, if we don't get him cropped out in the corner of a card art, I'm going to be pretty mad, but, that's neither.
That's the way that cookie crumbles.
He could just be behind the Soul Trigger icon.
Right. And this is actually something that Miko and I were talking about off air. We were wondering, so what happens when you get like a Sid character just pulling toy cards a card? Is that going to be a card? Just Sid strapping a toy to a rocket?
See, maybe.
I'd be down.
I wouldn't be surprised if in the trial deck for Toy Story, if the RC car isn't like an event or a card.
Right. And
that would make sense to me.
That would make sense. And it's also kind of incredible, too, because we got not one, not two, but 3 trial decks for Pixar.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and that they were specifically 3 different sets. Because usually with these Bunko-style sets, we get a just one altogether. So it's pretty neat just seeing 3 individual series as part of the umbrella of the set.
Yeah. And it's funny because it is kind of the HoloLive model. Not to the same degree, obviously, but...
No. I see where you're coming from. Yeah, I think it's cool. It lets them... By Bushiroad doing this, it lets them print more support for core series that people are interested in, while also leaving room in the rest of the set for maybe some of these smaller series.
Yeah, and I think it's cool because it also allows you to put out trial decks more easily when you are maybe following up with a set 2, because then you can put out a trial deck with the set 2 for something you haven't touched.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Pokemon's really good at that. And yeah. I definitely think that, the Bushiroad has a lot to learn from them as well.
I mean, there's always room to improve, but Bushiroad has been doing this since, 2007 now for Weiss? I think they've got a groove. It's working out for them. I think they've got a groove. It's working out for them.
But definitely always room to improve.
Always.
Yeah. All right. I think we've got all we can get out of the surprise. Well, okay, sorry. One last thing.
Got a set.
A set. Are you going to buy into Pixar?
Oh, how will I buy into Pixar? I was going to ask, when is the last time I've purchased a Japanese set? Let me think.
Is it Poyo?
The last time I bought a Japanese set was an old one.
Oh, right, King of Fighters.
My last 2 Japanese sets were Milky Homes and King of Fighters. So I'm probably the worst person to ask. I'm kind of interested. We'll keep an eye on it. I cautiously approach what the cards will look like.
True. And
true, because it could be either great art or it could be horrible art. We really don't know.
That's true. And the worst case scenario is that there is a licensing issue. I hope there isn't, because I'd like to play Disney Pixar in North America. At this point, I'm not aware of a conflicting card game in the case of both Marvel and Star Wars, which did cause some of those licensing issues. So I really would like this to get play and maybe an English release because that would be very big to bring casual people into the game.
Absolutely. I was actually going to bring that up if we were going to move on without that. I think, personal opinion, high likeliness that it's at least playable in North America as is. I think it's not unlikely. If that's the case, I don't think it's unlikely we see an English release, but that all hinges on that because currently, as far as I can think of, there would be no reason for Pixar not to allow it to be played in North America.
Right.
They will slap their characters on just about anything they can pay for, so I really think they would be happy to do that.
Yeah, and I would love to see it because turning Buzz Lightyear sideways seems hilarious. All right.
Yeah, I kind of thought about the kind of just ridiculousness of Sam Buzz and Woody versus perhaps like the really old sets, Persona 3, DiCapo, but then
Konata
also
from
just
Lucky
seeing,
Star.
yeah, Lucky Star, King of Fighters, I don't know, just some of the weirdest stuff. But then I also thought about the fact that Adventure Time's in it, and you can play against that, and that just kind of brings a smile to me, so
Yeah, no,
I
that's
don't
good
know, I'm
stuff.
excited about this one.
No, I'm very happy too. All right. The other revealed sets were all set twos or set threes for pretty important sets to the metagame, if not this year, but last year. Data Live 2. And one of the things that I noticed immediately off the bat from the promotional art that we got from Bushiroad here is that the characters that are mainly featured in that art paint to the left there are characters that were somewhat more heavily featured in the Fujimi Bunko character slate for Data Live. Specifically the twins and Miku being probably the most played out of the bunch in the standby build.
Sure, yeah.
So part of me wonders if maybe we'll see some cards from Fujimi Bunko find their way into Data Live 2 builds, or maybe the set's just too old.
I think I can't give the best answer on this one, unfortunately. I know so little about Data Live, which is embarrassing because I own the set because I find it fun to play. But from what I can tell, I wouldn't be surprised if they just go in a different direction for decks. I think Bushiroad's really going to keenly try to do what they can to just make it not playable with the old stuff. And maybe not by trait restriction, but by just nature of pushing you out of that. Because they really have been doing their best to just curb the 8 standby build out of Oblivion, because they really want people to play with the other cards.
Yeah.
And they're just as strong, honestly. It's just that it's so powerful in the first place, and it really is the cleanest build.
Yeah.
On the topic of if we see Fujimi Bunko cards come in, I think that still depends on what ends up coming into the set. There's always been some very good cards printed in the Fujimi Bunko set, such as the runner, such as that utility back row 1/1, such as some backups. There's some good stuff in there. It's just more a matter of what ends up getting printed. Because right now, the card pool is surprisingly big for only having one set, like a tiny bit of another set, and then an extra booster. There's
Yeah.
so much room for decks that just
Yeah.
don't end up getting play.
And given that we're getting DAL 2, DAL 3, booster pack, or aka a DAL volume 2, if you will,
Yeah.
we're gonna have 200 cards from the mainline set plus Fujimi Bunko plus the extra set. Although, unfortunately, the way the extra set is constructed, there's only a few cards that you can really extract from there that aren't really just kind of very focused on getting the TikTok clock thing going on.
That is true. Like I said, I think that's a package that they may play into, may not. I couldn't really give you an opinion on that one. Something to be interested in is if they happen to play with the theme of level 0 matters again, because in the extra booster, there's a whole half of the booster pretty much dedicated to level 0 matters deck. So it'll be interesting to look out for that one to work. Because right now it's not quite there.
It would be very cool to get like a very heavy level 0 deck
Yeah.
together, because like Data Live is a weird deck because it has a lot of level 0 utility, but sometimes it just doesn't quite mesh.
No, and the utility usually isn't played in these. Most of them are like caring about the level zeros either in deck or on field or only having level zeros. So it'll be interesting if they play into that theme anymore or if there just happen to be cards that we can play.
Yeah.
Otherwise, tons of cool finishers already, tons of interesting middle game and early game utility. So it'll be really interesting to see exactly what power level of cards we're going to end up getting out of this.
Yeah, and assuming everything goes to plan, this is hitting stores on the 5th of August, 2022. And moving on to the next sequel set is Kaguya-sama Love is War Season 2, which we'll be getting in July.
Yeah, these are some fast releases, quite honestly. Considering the slate they already had, which is a huge list of sets, some of them we very recently only got dates on. So seeing these July, August releases already is somewhat surprising. They're really powering through on these.
It's pretty ambitious, but I also have to wonder that you've had a lot of COVID disruptions to the tournament schedule in Japan, so maybe people just weren't buying as many sets. Like, definitely not 2020. I imagine there's probably still leftover stock for things like Lost Decade and shit. 2021, they had some of their WGP circuit, but some of it was also a bit disrupted, which might have interrupted card sales. So maybe they're just being more aggressive now to kind of make up lost ground.
That would seem reasonable. Like, I don't got numbers for you. They are out there somewhere, somewhat, but I think sets were still selling fairly well. Definitely going to be a hit, obviously, just due to circumstances. But sets that people were excited for were still selling very well. I mean, like, you can't look at Hololive and not just assume that made up for some of the lost money they had
Oh
there.
god, yeah, Hollow White just printed so much money. I think once people figured out, well, not figured out Kaguya, I think people really, really like this show. And it's probably a
Yeah,
strong seller,
yeah,
and on top of that, it's a good deck.
yeah. And I'm glad to see a season 2 for it because it was interesting. The first set was a mix between season 1 and 2. So it interesting they're calling this a season 2 booster because it's not entirely false, but like also there was definitely a bit of season 2 in the first set anyhow.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's good to see, and I want to see more of it. At the same time, though, do you think they probably go a bit less ham on the cards this time, or do you think we're
Oh,
going to see a push deck?
I think that they are going to have to be extremely cautious of what they give it because right now, even with the ban list, the set is still seeing results with modified versions of the build because they kind of just went with cards that they were playing as a couple in the deck, like maybe one or two of if you're feeling a little cheeky,
Yep.
to just replacing some of these ban list cards and then upping other numbers to make up for it. So
Right.
already the ban was it kind of just made you work with new sets of cards instead. It's still doing well, definitely nowhere near as well as it was, but you can't really look at the results and say that it's not a good pick anymore because it's still very strong.
Well, it's incredible that people are still playing the deck after it got hit decently hard. It's not like it got absolutely nuked like Data Live did,
Yeah.
but we
Uh,
still have stuff to work with.
we still got stuff to work with. There was a different runner. You have to pay one stock for it, but it also still pumps power. So while you're losing the level 0 Chica that lets you find a card and also pump power, you get to kind of combine your runner and your power boost into the same card. It is different, it's not quite the same, and we are losing the Chica, which was a huge part of it. But it's still finding results. I think it's interesting. I'm excited for set 2. I think you're going to be seeing a different build out of it entirely, though.
Right.
I think they're going to very intentionally try to print maybe minor upgrades for what they currently have that you would maybe prefer to play. Maybe a better 2-2 or something. I don't know what they could really do with that. But you're probably going to see more gearing towards other builds. And the first set already has quite a few interesting builds. My favorite 8 bag maybe we see a bit more support for that because it's pretty cool. You got your other like more blue colored decks where it plays much more. It's just value grinding the game out with heals. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more generic stuff like that, but we'll probably see a newer top end that they are pushing into a package so that you have to play it.
Yeah, and that's probably all I can really ask for is just more deck variety, because the more varied a metagame you have, it's generally a sign that there's more people having fun enjoying building their decks, right?
Absolutely. My favorite thing is when a set is doing well, but it's not just one build.
Yeah.
It's many builds coming out of that set that is keeping it interesting, and it's not just one thing dominant, which we have been seeing quite a bit. I'm wondering though, maybe just with the lack of tournaments in the past year and a bit, actually I guess it's closer to 2 years now, if not longer, whatever. Just I'm wondering if the somewhat lack of variety within series is just due to lack of push at tournaments. People have found what works, and maybe that's good enough for now.
Yeah.
They don't really need to try and find some spice to keep it fresh, because there's no need to be the surprising player at the tournament. Because that is one thing that you can say about playing an off meta or meta adjacent deck is it's more surprising. If people don't know what you're doing, it's easier to just kind of do your thing.
Yeah. And it then just gives so much pressure to develop decks. And we definitely missed that a little when we went to online, to COVID, all that fun stuff.
I do think that some of the deck expression simply just due to there not being a need to.
Yeah. No, that's entirely fair.
I'm excited to see perhaps some more interesting builds come back. For English side, we saw super cool Fate build that came out of nowhere, playing the 2/1 Gilgamesh and just running the coin flip. People really just thought that was kind of left in ye old era, but they made it work. They tore it up. Real happy to see that. That brought a smile to the face.
Yeah. And we got Itachi here saying that Bushiroad pushes a certain build when they make a set and they know it. And to be fair, for a lot of decks, there is a central set in the build. And I know on a previous interview with Alex, we kind of said, like, yeah, the decks do kind of get pushed in a certain direction.
Oh, absolutely. There's really no denying. I mean, just looking at Kaguya, printing a top end that resonates with a level 0, that also has a back row that is a hand advantage engine as well, that also cares about that 0. Very obvious to see they care about printing packages and pushing. So that's what I'm thinking in set 2 here for this one. Just going to print a new package entirely.
Right. That's fair. And I think that's all I really have to say about Kaguya if you want to push on to the next set that we got on the docket.
Yep, absolutely. So we got Quintessential Quintuplets. I can talk. Quintessential Quintuplets, the movie set. This is super interesting because we already have 2 sets of this, and I'm pretty sure the second one. Oh, now you're testing me. Either hasn't come out or just recently came out. No, it came out a little while ago.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking about it. Tons of builds in that deck. You have, like, if you want to go mono character, obviously you got 5. If you want to mix, just tons. But
well, you also have the Exodia too.
Mm-hmm. You got Exodia, absolutely. I mean, that's maybe you can debate if that one's playable or not, but when it happens, it happens. I won't deny it. But 12 Standby has been seeing a lot of success over the tournament circuits that have been happening. Very powerful deck. It does what it wants to do. Doesn't care too much about what your opponent. We've been seeing a lot of those kinds of decks, so it'll be interesting to see what they print in the movie to maybe encourage playing not just mono character decks, because a lot of the current packages are all based around one character.
Well,
so they kind of make you pick.
That's probably how people want to play it, because a lot of the fans of Quints are fans of one of the 5 girls, right?
Absolutely. No, and I think that's how Bushiroad's been printing it, so that's what I mean. It might be interesting to see if they maybe try to print just a deck where you have to play more than one character, but I kind of doubt it just based off of having two sets already of mono character decks mostly.
Yeah. But I think now that we're getting into the 3-set territory, we're getting a very sizable card pool. It's not to
It
the
is
same size
yeah.
as Kantai yet, especially because
No.
Kantai had that double set that's just huge.
Yeah,
And,
Kansai has some huge sets in the first place, and it's also got what, 4 sets
yeah,
now?
but
And then a extra booster. It's a huge card pool. I mean, it still pales compared to the Capo, but that was like the second set printed.
yeah,
So you
but
kind of just don't got that legacy.
yeah, but with this is the modern version of that,
Yeah,
where we've gotten
absolutely.
3 sets in a very short period of time,
Yeah,
and
very short.
even within one girl, you're gonna start to see some deck building options that
Mhm.
Bushiro didn't foresee, because now we've got a 300 card pool.
Just for one character, almost. Some of these sets are huge, and then they also have the trial decks for each character. So these are huge card pools. So it'll be interesting to see that there's because for some of the characters there's basically one way to build it, some of them there's a couple ways to build it, but it'll be interesting to see now that there's even more ways to do this.
Yeah, and I'm here for it 100%. And yeah, local good card game player Kilua is probably gonna come smash our heads over in with a waifu deck as soon as this
Oh,
drops in September.
oh, that poor man. He hasn't even gotten his hands on Saikano yet.
Oh
And
god, he is getting Psychoto
he
too.
just barely got off Hololive. He hasn't got Saikano in his hands yet, and now he hears that Quince is getting a movie set. This poor man. I Bushiroad, they have something against our guy Kaluba. I am
No, they
confident at
have
this
him
point. They
completely marked.
they've got him whipped. I don't know. I feel bad for the man.
I mean,
But happy
fair.
for Quince fans that they're getting yet another set.
And honestly, it's great for the community too because Quince is
Yep.
another pretty popular series, so more
It's
new players,
very
it's awesome.
popular, yeah. I have seen new players playing that set and saying, "Yeah, I heard about it because of this."
Yeah.
So, that is cool.
All right. And then moving on to our last new set and our resident Love Life player is going to be very happy about this Nijigasaki set 2. And that's coming
Absolutely.
very quick.
Yeah. When do they got that slated for
That
again?
is May 27th.
Oh, that is shocking to me because we have barely had the first set even. Now, that's half true because we got the TDs very early, but then we got the set pretty recently here. So that's blistering speed for Love Live series.
Well, what's even more incredible is Love Live Superstar is barely a quarter old.
Yes, that is a completely different thing. You don't play them together,
No,
but
but
they. I understand. Love
so
Live
much
kind
Love
of does
Live.
have the rollover of if you're a fan of one of the series, you're probably interested in more than one of them. But
And
yeah,
it's
they are just really going breakneck with these Love Live releases, especially for Nijigasaki.
and you know what's incredible about all this is we want in the same time that it took D-Side Tremere to go from TD to full booster, we might
Yeah,
actually get 2 full Love Live sets.
yeah, that is incredible. Actually, the speed of tournament. They have to be expediting these sets because they have vested interest in it. Mostly just because I mean I'm pretty sure they're still at least partial owners or partially invested in Love Live umbrella. So that certainly helps. I know with the Hololive set though, they said like, "Hey, this is a uh, rush release. We are doing it faster." So that's why we got that one so quick from announcement. But it's
Yeah.
just kind of shocking to me that uh, and the time span that it took for first set to come out and them to put it on ban list. Oh, by the way, don't worry, we got you. Set 2 on its way. Don't worry. You won't have to wait very long to play with new cards. We know we just banned something that you're interested in. even though there's other decks that you can play, even though there was like basically the same lists that just weren't running clock encores that
Yep.
were still seeing success because it's a good card.
And
Never
Nijigasaki
mind,
is
never
just
mind that.
good too.
Yeah,
Like
just never mind that. Yeah, we're
local
getting
player
excited.
Anzu did get top 3. Sorry, he got 3rd in NAWGP with Nijigasaki. So it's a good set already. And Itachi is
Sorry,
telling
good
Kevin
stuff.
to stop being fans of things.
Yeah, Killer should just quit being fans of things. Correction though, Anzu was playing
He was playing
not
Nijigasaki.
no, he was playing the other one.
No, he was playing Red Gate. Sorry, 8 Standby Nijigasaki.
See?
Yes. He wasn't playing Superstar.
No, not Superstar. The other one, the older one.
He wasn't playing Sunshine, and he wasn't playing the original, so he's playing Nijigasaki.
Am I crazy on this?
Yes.
Maybe he is. I don't know. Whatever.
John,
Love Live.
you don't know your idols.
Dude, it has too many series in it. I'm sorry.
That's fair, that's fair.
Never mind the fact that it also has like other ones that aren't even in Weiss. We already have like 4 series of this. My bad. Apologies. But
all right. But I just can't believe how quickly this is coming, and with how good of a set Nijigasaki already is, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more Love Live on the ban list by the time this year is out. And speaking about the ban list, we got some changes to Neo Standard. And
yes, we do.
This continues on a trend that we saw starting last year with a lot of older bands that seem to be legacy bands getting unrestricted. The exception to this is Kimono Friends gets completely unrestricted, and I am very happy about that as our resident Kimono bro. That deck it's a good deck.
I'm happy to see it come off too. I mean, you know me, I did take it to Nats and Ghosts top 16 with it. I think it's a fun deck. I understand the people's frustration playing against it. I understand why Bushiroad put it on the ban list in the first place. Kind of shocking though that the span between release to when it was multiple years at that point. But whatever. Happy to see it come off though. I think it was fair to put it on for a couple seasons, but it's already just the style of the deck is being represented in other series, not to the same degree, but I think it's old enough now that maybe it's showing its gears a little rusty,
It's still a decent enough set. Like, I think now that it's unbanned, people will just come out and be like, hey, let's try this unbanned toy. And it'll make some noise because back in 2019, it still converted at over a quarter.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Hugely popular series, still doing well, heavily represented. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, compared to some of the newer series, it doesn't have all the same fun toys anymore. So it's still a very solid deck, don't get me wrong. We're happy to see it. We love to see it, in fact. But maybe Bushiroad is like, okay, I think we can get away with just taking away this. I mean, obviously, that's what they've decided.
Well,
I think it's a fair step.
Well, I think the thing is I think there's enough offensive decks that can probably punch a hole in it. Like, I don't think that the Kimono style of compression goes too favorably into Slime, for instance.
No, I don't think so either.
Although
there's other decks that can outgrind it.
Yeah.
I think there's other decks that outrace it because, Burn 1 is still a very popular ability, but not every deck's doing it anymore. I think that was their concern. And if I may say something slightly controversial, I think Kimono died for Fate's
sins.
I think Fate's sins is what caused Kimono to die.
To be fair, though, Kimono was also an issue that year.
Again, I think that was just the meta that it happened to find itself in.
That's
because it wasn't even on their or at least they didn't say it was on their radar any previous year leading up to that, or any previous ban list leading up to that. So I think it was just at the wrong time, but also the right place at the right time. It was getting results, it was doing its thing, but I think they looked at it along with Fate and decided, you know what? this isn't what we want for the game right now. And then they proceeded to print a bunch of very aggressive sets immediately after that ban list. So I think Kimono did die in part.
You know what? We'll accept that. Uh,
Okay.
one at the same time though, Alpaca plus the searchable heal to hand event that goes to memory is going to be good in any metagame.
Oh,
So
that's absolutely.
this deck, frankly, doesn't really care about what the opponent is doing until the opponent decides to do a very aggressive, either a very aggressive stock wash or a very aggressive icy tail. Because even a standard icy tail, like a standard free icy tail that only takes the bottom 3 character cards off your deck, or bottom 4, is probably going to get blocked by Kabon.
Probably. But it does at least have the upside of Kimono sitting on this thin deck, you're decking them out fast.
Yeah.
So you're getting pseudo burn ones, but obviously not as efficient.
No. And at the same time, just the deck is so efficient at searching, at replenishing its hand, at replenishing its stock, and even you can even just get around stock wash by just sitting at 5 stock and letting your memory sit at 4 or 5 cards. And this is the brilliant thing about the way Kimono's memory compression works is if your opponent just decides to memory dump you, most memory dump cards leave you at 3 or 4 cards in memory.
Yeah.
Memory dumping helps you.
I think it is notable that like no decks are playing memory dumps. They're just so inefficient currently.
Yeah.
I would like to say though, you mentioned it refills its hand very easily. I think you may find that the deck going into what's currently getting played may have a harder time with that because before we were still seeing a fair share of 1k1 decks. Right
Right.
now, we're really coming into the standby field. There's
That's fair.
definitely some 1k1, other CX lineups. When I say 1k1, obviously I don't. It should be noted. I don't just mean that kind of lineup,
Yeah.
but that is the most popular alternative to standby. I think you're going to find though that running into standby, you're going to either have to just high roll off of your coin flip and zombie profiles, or you're just going to be losing board. And I'm kind of thinking that's going to be a problem because your cards aren't very big. You are a standby deck, but you're that value standby. You're really not going for these giant walls. The 2/2 beat stick wasn't even getting played because it just wasn't good enough, even at the time. So going into now, I'm starting to think that maybe your field is just going to get run over and maybe you're going to have a harder time with your hand.
Well, at the same time, if you can get reasonably compressed, so you get 1 or 2 Kabons into memory, plus a Serval, and get an early Alpaca, you're hitting your brainstorms more often. So
Yeah, that's true.
you are insulated from missing a coin flip because remember, Kimono has always been a squishy deck.
Absolutely.
Like off
Always
turn,
has. I know that.
like off
It just
turn,
blows
your
you.
coin flips were 5k at level 1. They were getting run over in 2017. And
Oh,
it didn't matter.
to be fair, that was the point. I'm just saying, with your opponents also have an encore, even if you do happen to find that reverse, because there are some ways to still find a reverse with your level 1.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking maybe, we're starting to run into the problem of maybe getting outclassed, but
Probably.
it'll be an interesting deck to play. I think it's a careful dance. Simply having stock advantage is going to convert properly into hand advantage because before those pluses off the brainstorm were keeping your hand full.
Yeah.
Now they're going to be keeping your hand going. I don't think it's going to be keeping your hand full, which is kind of rough because you want to be sitting on those heal events, you want to be sitting on the tap counters once you're getting closer to late level 2, but usually you would have to start looking for early level 2 even.
Yeah.
And could be 1 to 2, maybe 3 turns. I'm thinking we're going to be looking at 1 to 2 turns max now.
Yeah.
Because we're just losing hands so quickly. So I'm pretty excited to see how this ends up shaking out. I would love to see more Kimono friends. I think it's a cool deck. I think there's, maybe some more room for new builds. I think Dolphins is still quite strong.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah, I think
very excited.
I think it'll take
we
some
should.
people by surprise.
And that is the one thing. It kind of is just like, what's the set do? Oh, I can't play some of my effects. You're just kind of healing off what I'm doing. You're doing your own thing.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's a handshake for me, buddy. So it does have that effect to it.
All right. Speaking about healing events, Cordelia's Garden.
Oof.
Does this matter?
It is so hard to say because when event first went to 2, people were really excited about Milky. It was seeing a lot of play, at least I know in North America. People were very excited because Milky fans, they are always fans. It doesn't matter that it's over now. People love it. Something to note actually is they kind of announced like, hey, we're going to be doing a couple more animated episodes on our YouTube channel, which I think is interesting. I don't think this really converts to them even getting like a small set because they've done plenty of just tiny sets for this whole series, but I think likeliness of getting any more Milky cards very low. The problem though finding with Cordelia's Garden was it was even hard justifying it at 2. Never mind now that we have 4 copies. Your top end for Milky Homes is surprisingly not bad, just considering how old the set is.
Yeah.
It's still a pretty solid top end, quite honestly, you know. You can either go with Claw Kick, you can either go with Burns, you can either go with Restands, you know, all of those usually fit in the same deck even. The only problems you're running into are hand and stock, but you're level 1, gens you a bunch of stock, and if you get to high roll on a couple turns of that, you're sitting golden. So I think if you want to play Cordelia's Garden, you're going to have to drop a couple of these finishers and maybe just go for heal and just hunkering down and healing, which is a little bit of a tough sell on.
Yeah, especially given that it's a standby meta.
Yeah, absolutely.
Notably,
though, you're kind of huge with that backup.
That's true.
And your package. But again, I noticed playing into standby, it's a little rough. You definitely don't get as many reverses as. So the if I may as well mention what Cordelia's Garden does. It's a 3/2 event. Heal 2 from the top of your clock, give a character plus 3k, and then send this event to memory.
Yeah.
So you are converting what it would usually be 1 card, 1 heal for 1 card, 2 heals, and a plus 3k, which you're hoping to find another reverse on a lane. That might not be the case, really. It's kind of rough right now. There's some big power decks going around, even at level 3. It'll be interesting. The biggest problem with that deck, I find, is hand. Maybe I'm just bad player. Probably just bad player. But I know the guy who sold me the deck was even like, yeah, this is kind of not working out anymore.
Yeah.
So I think maybe, like I said, if you want to play those heal events, you're going to be dropping some of these finishers because your hand and your stock is going to matter a bit more. Maybe play some of the level 3s that draw you cards so that you can actually replenish your hand or at least go even. It's going to be rough. It'll be interesting. I'm interested. The other notable thing is the event is blue, and that is pretty much outside the core of what the normal Milky deck plays. It plays red-green, mostly green early, mostly red late, and then the problem is you need yellow for that you care about is in green and yellow, but yellow has your draw, so if you need to draw, you're going to be playing yellow. It also has bounces in yellow, so there's good enough reason to go in yellow. Is it good enough reason to go into quad for an event that oftentimes is just going to be a brick, quite honestly? Kind of hard to say. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to be proxying up and testing.
I think it's worth testing, yeah.
I'm going to sit down and test like a just sit down, heal, draw, pass, you know, the good Weiss TM. You know, you can find your color fixing pretty easily with your back row swapping, but yeah, I won't get into it much more. I think it's a little rough. It'll be interesting to see if somebody makes it work. Happy for them. Gladly will steal your ideas because I've got no brain. But I'll test it out. We'll see.
All right. Kilua popped in, so we got visited by the Annie Evo champion to tell us that the best deck in the meta, you counter with Kimono Friends, got hit
Mhm.
by the ban list, which was Kaguya, and we hope for a season 2. But if I I believe.
I believe too. I think the thing is, yeah, pretty neatly counters Kaguya, but they also just got claw kicks. But I mean, you know,
Heal two
I
hand.
think set two. Oh, heal two hand. You're so smart. You just claw kick so I can grab another event. Foolish Kaguya players, but I think with the set two, you're very specifically going to see a different kind of top end. So
Probably, yeah.
other than that, though, I'm having a hard time thinking what that really plays well into.
All right, next we have Little Buster's Rest
Oh
event
boy.
is now limited one instead of banned, where the Rest event is another one of those really nice early heal events.
Yeah. It's actually a
Oh,
3-1
shoot,
event,
it's
if
a
memory
3-1,
serves
yeah.
correctly. Notable, though, you select 2 cards in your clock and heal them. So it doesn't have to be your top cards. There's, there's some utility in that. Keep your color in. The biggest thing, though, that you're going to find is, the series has an anti-heal. I'm told maybe it's not played in every deck, but right now, heal's pretty good. Most decks are healing. I don't see a reason why not to play this or why not to play anti-heal.
And
So
at the
it's
same
kind of a tough sell.
Yeah, and at the same time, the Little Busters update came with
Mhm.
the key update back at the beginning of 2020, and outside of the regenesis of Charlotte for a few months, we
Yeah.
never really saw Little Busters do anything. And one
Mhm.
copy of an event probably isn't going to push the needle. I don't think this
I,
matters.
I really do not foresee this having that much impact. Much like perhaps another series that's here later on the list, moving an event to one really isn't getting you anywhere. The
Yeah.
difference between events and moving a character to one is characters are at least searchable. Most of the time, the series do not have event search.
Kimono
And
Bros.
and when your event is likely countering what you should probably be doing right now, it's a little bit of a tough sell. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, maybe you just say screw the anti-heal and you sit on your fat money counters, you sit on your heals, and you just get there. I don't know. It's a hard sell. I think
Yeah.
it's tough for me. I hope it works out for somebody. We have a local player who is very happy about this. We'll see. I don't know. There are interesting lists. I think there's some cool abilities, like with Standby now, you can get out anti-act, and
Oh,
just
yeah.
at every turn, which works pretty well. Most people like brainstorming. Most people love using these like pay one, sack itself, look at four characters when they're a standby deck. It has utility. Do we get there? I'm still not convinced. We didn't really see any results, so I'll keep an eye on it. I'm interested. I think it is notable though that with these past 3 sets we've mentioned, they're all heal decks, or at least what's coming off the ban list is heal.
Well,
So I think
not this
Bushiroad,
next card where
not this next card.
Arahi gets another copy of the World of Faded Colors. World of Faded
Mhm,
Colors was put on the ban list back in the day because it was part of a combo that basically just let you get insane amounts of value for nothing.
mhm. Not even one combo. It's just a value because the set itself had ways to mitigate it. So the event, do you happen to have it handy? Because it's got a lot of text, and I'm probably gonna flub
No,
it.
but the
All
idea
right.
was you would sack a character to grab two more.
Yeah.
But you had other ways to basically either reinstate the character or reinstate a character that was equally good, and you also had characters that would get power for replacing sacking the character and replacing it with a lower level character.
Let me try my memory because I think I got this pretty well. It's a 1-2 event. You have to sacrifice a specific trait, which notably, there was another card that gave cards that were level 0 that trait, so it didn't matter. What you then did was summon a level 0 back to the stage and salvage 2. Notably, there's also a card that you could give another character or give a character the effect when it goes to waiting room this turn, you can return it to stage. So it really didn't matter because you just sack a back row and it comes back.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. +3, huge. There was a lot of cards that you would then use as part of the quote unquote combo. It was more synergy, but there was a few different lines. One of them that was the main one was that when this character attacked, you could pump power, and so that's level 0, and so you're just getting a huge boon off of one card. Pretty stock intensive, but personally, at 2, I think we might see it again. At 1, it was a tough sell. I think at 2, we can get there.
My big question is, does Haruhi have anything?
I mean, how many sets do we have now for it? We have the first set, we have the extra booster, we have
Sneaker.
Comeback, we have a comeback set.
Yeah, and Sneaker Bunko.
And then Sneaker.
I just don't think there's
strong
enough
cards in Sneaker and Comeback. I mean, you've seen our resident Haruhi player.
That's true.
Now, that's a very different style of deck, though, than what you would want to be throwing Swing into. I mean, it's just a good value card, don't get me wrong. But a lot of those cards maybe might be a little clunky to include in the current year, for
of course.
On play, give another card encore. I think it's just a good value card. Maybe we come back to playing some of those zeros that pump power, lets you get over walls, but it's kind of weird because right now you either have just a more traditional Haruhi build, or you're trying to stand by and getting that level 3 out at level 1?
Yeah.
That one doesn't really work too well, but I've still seen people play it. Haruhi's weird. I think I'm happy that it's weird. I think happy that we're getting the event to 2. Probably not an crazy prediction. It'll come to 4 on the next ban list because Bushiroad really doesn't like doing 3s unless it's a choice.
Yeah.
When they're doing restriction, they go 1 to 2 to 4. The difference between 3 to 4 is
negligible.
Nothing. That's very obvious to them. That's very obvious to anyone who runs the numbers. I don't think that takes much to think about. So, next ban list after, probably going to 4.
Yeah, probably. But speaking of ban lists, we do get one new ban, which is surprising for kind of a March ban list. We get Love Live, Sunshine, and Shioko are put on a choose 3, which neuters a specific card that does a bunch of insane effects if you are exactly 3/6 damage, and a 1/0 promo from Shioko that allows you to play Shioko over itself and has music trade and just generates a very quick way to push yourself up from 3/0 to 3/6 very quickly. I had Kit from Burn 1 who has a very good video on the bare bones and the meat of this mechanic on the show the other day, and he basically said that this is a combo that, and one of the first true hyper aggressive Weiss decks that we've seen, where it is worthwhile to clock yourself to get the kill. And this deck can reasonably kill from 2/2, which is not how Weiss Schwarz was intended to be played.
Notably, just a quick correction. You said Love Live Sunshine. This is for Love Live
Superstar.
You did the one that I got. Oh,
we both fucked it.
Superstar. We both did it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of earlier. I thought, never mind. We got there. We were very confused. This is.
But are we talking about Bushy or Valve? Itachi asks us.
Oh, just don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. It's okay.
This is Superstar. Also, quick thing: the ban list is a 1 choose 3 between the level 3 that does it, the Shioko that is the promo with Clock Encore, and the 1/1 from the trial deck that also has Clock Encore. So they've removed any ability to have Clock Encore from the set so that you cannot just do this. Now, I think it is noteworthy. There were some decks running around without the Clock Encore that were still basically the same deck getting results. It didn't matter that they couldn't get themselves to exactly 3/6. If you got there, you kind of just win. But otherwise, it's still a good card. I think this ban, it's really hard to say how much it's going to affect the results, because even outside of specifically this level 3 top end, there are other good cards in this set that are just absurd.
Yeah, like the 3/1 event that just burns.
Yes.
That is disgusting. So this deck it still has a lot of weapons to bring to bear, and we have not seen the end of it.
No, that's what I mean. We Yellow and blue both have extremely strong cards, so you're just going to see people playing different cards that are strong. It's just more in line with Bushi's game design philosophy, which is
Do
good.
you think
And
we're
then,
going to get another big ban like Fate or Data Live on on Superstar?
so this is the series that's getting a new set, right? Or
No,
is
it is
okay? I'm getting
Nijigasaki. That
confused.
is.
All right, that one gets like a million sets. Gotcha. Do we see another ban? Hard to say. We're gonna have to see where people end up falling, if they just abandon the deck, or if they move to some of the more other strong cards.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or
you
if
know, it's
Dragon Maid is really good and it just overshadows it. Am I right,
it's so
guys?
hard to say. It's so hard to say because this happens. Stuff goes on the ban list. Maybe it's still a good play. Something new comes out that just overshadows
Yeah.
it, and the results get lost.
All right.
I think it's hard to say. It really is.
But I still, yeah, we're both in agreement. This is still a good deck. Uh,
Absolutely, still a
that
good deck.
wraps up Neo Standard. Do you want to take a quick tour into Standard?
Sure, I can take this one if you don't mind. I did
We
look at
have one
the
important
list.
thing to start before
Yeah,
we talk about the big
one
list of bands, which is very important. We got to talk about
one.
the most singular important unban in Standard's first ban list update in over 5 years.
Yes.
Action Common is now completely and utterly free.
He is free, my boy is free. My man is free. This
Justice is served.
is not an unban. You have to understand. This is
The
the
unban.
unban. Action Bastard back at 4. Happy to see this. Like, you think I'm joking? I am genuinely so happy about this. This fits perfectly into a deck we were already playing. Because we play a little standard. We haven't in a long time, but we play a little standard. We like this format.
Yo, yo, yo.
This is not.
Do you want
This
to
is
play
not
some
an
Standard
unban.
next week?
Yes, I standard.
Oh, we don't. Wait, we don't have the cards yet, but honestly, if we do start doing more Wild Wild Weiss streams, just kind of weekday, uh, I would be down to do a Standard stream every once in a while. Just play a few hands of Standard, talk with
Absolutely.
chat. I've always been tempted to get a stream commander.
Yeah, you know what? For standard, I have enough English sets and just other sets sitting around. I could make something interesting, I guarantee you, just off of what I have at home.
But right,
And I think that's what's interesting about standard. You own more than one set, more than likely. Wouldn't you like to use your cards that you're maybe not playing anymore? I don't see why people aren't interested in this format. I understand that the ban list and just balancing is all over the place. It's getting better though, trust me. I would like to. I'll go into a little bit of detail on why I'm thinking this is a healthier format. This is mostly a ban list update for a few people. I think the action common coming off. I think that was just them going. It doesn't matter anymore. It
no,
really
it
doesn't
matters
matter.
so much. It fits
But
so well
they
into
are
green
so
dot
wrong.
deck.
They are just so wrong. Action mask matters. Every copy matters. Never mind the fact that it's impossible to find. But let's get into this. I would love to talk about these bans. So, notably, the problem that a lot of people had with Standard was that there was one turn kill decks. Now, before Marvel came out, you would acquire this. You would do this by looping Lie Detector and drawing a bunch of cards and then just finding a burn payoff. Now that Marvel came out, you have Doctor Strange, which lets you look at your top 8, and if you reveal 8 climaxes, you simply just win the game. That is just a final payoff, very clean. It took forever to play these combos. So the issues that people had with Standard was not only that there was an OTK deck, I had to sit through 25 minutes plus, if not longer, of my opponent playing their own combo that I can't do anything about because I didn't go first. And then the other problem was just these combos aren't healthy. They're
Nope.
cool, don't get me wrong. They're cool. I think it's neat that there were combos, but if you're going to try and push a format that's already unpopular, that's not how you get people into it.
Of course.
So, looking at these bans, there are so many cards that got added, so I'm going to give you basically 3 card types here. Number 1, assume if it was a card that gave a clock encore ability to other characters, assume it's banned. There is, just scrolling through here quickly.
Kyubey
Let's
from
see.
Madoka Magica.
Kyubey,
That
Sonozaki,
bastard
Avenger,
from
Shiro, Rin, Kanon, Megu, Kaoru, Bellubi. What even is this? Is that Godzilla? What the
Yeah,
fuck?
that's Godzilla.
Mari, Hirano, Ozymandias. Just assume if it gave other characters Clock Encore, it's banned.
Yeah.
Now, there were some that were generic. There were some that were not.
Doesn't
Now that
matter.
I think about it, I think Sonozaki was from his Naiver, and that was the generic one. That was a bigger issue,
Yeah,
but it was at
he
level 1.
had to
But
go.
we're just gonna just paint a wide brush. Assume if it gave Clock Encore, it's banned. This is good because what you would generally do was you would pick your level 0 of choice, usually Kyubey, because that was the easiest. Magic had some top 4 checks that you could find the rest of your combo with. Assume you would sit down if you win whatever randomized method you used to determine who goes first. If you're a good boy or girl, you probably used rock paper scissors like Bushiroad and Kidani intended you to. If you're naughty, maybe you use a dice roll, whatever. If you didn't go first, you let your opponent do their thing, assuming they're not playing an OTK deck. Maybe they played a couple cards, attacked, whatever. It doesn't matter. They just got you close to level 1. Then what you do is you sit there and you find your Clock Encore assist, and you clock yourself up to 1, which then lets you start getting the rest of your combo, and then you just clock yourself to when you could start playing your kill cards. So it was very unhealthy. It was if the person who was playing the OTK deck went first, you won. There was some before the Doctor Strange, the deck was slightly slower and they had to play 2 turns, so there was some counterplay with the anti-encore from Sword Art Online Anniversary. But it really didn't matter. If they just had it, they had it. It's not healthy. So they've banned all Clock Encore assists pretty much. The next thing that was banned in the 3 groups here would be Lie Detector. What this lets you do was look at your opponent, or sorry, we'll pull up the get it pulled up here.
Okay.
So you basically decide the opponent looks at their top cards and declares either 0, 1, 2, or 3. You decide if they're telling the truth or a lie, and then they flip their top card. If you guessed correctly, you then draw 2 cards. So this card is a 2-0 event that was Pot of Greed because there are cards that let you look at your opponent's top card. So you always knew what they were going to have. So it didn't matter. There's no mind game. You knew. So it was always Pot of Greed. So, it didn't matter. This had to go. Even outside of OTK decks. I mean,
It's just
you
not fair.
simply can't. You simply can't let that stick around in a form. I mean, it doesn't matter if they only get it for 2 levels of the game instead of just winning the game with it. You can't let that happen. I think notably the quote unquote Pot of Greed from Project Diva, the one where you top check 4 twice and add a character both times, that's not on the list. Interesting, because music
Is big.
in standard is huge. It also has it's not infinite, it's just a value engine, but it has an engine that uses that and gens stock and hand off of both of these, because there's some level 0s that you can very cheekily use the effect of just sending themselves to stock. It usually has another part of the effect. You don't care. It just sends itself to stock.
Yeah.
So you get to pay gen stock and then also gen hand with these cores. So I think that's interesting. I don't think it's a problem though, but it isn't infinite. So
Yeah.
it's just a value engine. I think that's fine. There's many value engines instead. So many
And it's really cool.
different ways. I think it's cool. I think having a combo synergy thing going on that's known, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't see that being problematic yet. We'll see if something breaks it. If it does, probably ends up on the ban list. The third card is Doctor Strange. It is simply just banned. I mean,
It's not fair.
you had to see it coming. An alternative win con in a format that has every set available in a game where you just don't have alternative win cons simply isn't going to stick around. there was too many ways, even outside of the OTK deck, to probably set this up to at some get it. I don't know. It had to go. They just are trying to tell players, please don't play OTK deck. Like actually just play the format.
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing here is the few players that do play standard sent a lot of feedback to, hey, standard is still somewhat played. Here's what you can ban to start fixing. Because I think the reason that the ban list for standard went entirely unchanged for, like you said, over half a decade was simply because it's a mess. There are so many sets. We're getting
Where do you
close to
start?
200. Yeah. How many series are we at now in Weiss? We're getting close to 200 now, aren't we?
Something like that, yeah.
Because I know last time I thought about it, we were like at 160 some, I think. We're getting even higher. It's such a mess.
Yeah,
so
Doctor Strange, Marvel is Schwarz 89.
Yeah, there you go. And I think it's just Schwarz has fewer sets than the other
Weiss,
side.
Yeah.
So we're already probably close to 200, if not more.
Yeah.
What a mess. How are you going to look at a ban list when you just let it go dormant for so long? So I think it's really nice that they listen to player feedback on and to keep it healthy. I'm hoping that maybe they keep an eye on the format a bit more. Something hopeful is that for the very first time in an exceedingly long time, there was an official standard tournament run. That is huge. That gives me hope that maybe we start seeing this format of tournaments again. These are only happening in Japan. That is what it is. I think it's that they are starting to give interest again to standard.
Yeah. And you'll love to see it.
We love to see it. I think it's a great way. To me, it makes sense. You have this card game where the idea is, do you want to play your favorite anime or video game? Yeah, you probably have more than one. You probably have more than one deck that you own. You probably have a bunch of cards you're not playing with. Why not play with them? It just doesn't make sense to me that the only format people play is the one where you only play one. I don't see why most people don't have a Neo Standard and Standard deck. It just gets more value out of your collection.
Well, the problem is that Standard was allowed to fall into disrepair.
Absolutely. I think that it was from the standpoint of the company, right?
Yep.
When they started letting it slip, I think Standard was getting very unpopular and extremely stale. So they said, you know what? Enough. Now, there's a huge pool, and if you love deck brewing, you're in paradise. You can do anything. There is any archetype of deck that you want to play, you can play it. So, if I may, I'd like to go over a couple decks that are currently doing well.
Okay.
Just very briefly.
Very briefly, okay,
So currently one of the best decks that isn't this deck that just got banned is 8 Standby Reinhardt. The idea is you standby in Reinhardt early, and then you use a specific card from Haruhi that at the end of your turn you can pay 2 to send it and another character to memory, and they come back next turn. This turns your Reinhardt on, but you still get 3 attacks. You then just will high roll off of counters and burn counters, like the Basara counter. That's cool. That's a cool deck. It also manages to pack in some just like anti-act hate and all this kind of stuff, just in a very cool deck. I think that's neat, and I don't think it's absurd like these one-turn kill combo decks.
Well, you can get rid of Reinhardt.
You can't. It does have hexproof, but there are ways to deal with it.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. There is counterplay. Obviously, the format isn't super played, so it's not all found out yet what's the best counterplay, but I mean, we're getting there. So that's a cool deck to keep your eye on if you just want to go in, and if you're interested in Standard and you just want to go and play one of the best decks right now, there you go. Some of these other cool decks, ones that we're a fan of that maybe aren't the best, Mono Green. You'll notice that due to having these huge card pools, monocolored decks are obscenely strong just because of how much printing. Now, green and blue definitely have way more support for monocolored decks than the other ones, but that's just because of the way that they print these cards. But mono green itself, really cool package, hyper efficient. You got a card that sends itself to memory to search your deck for a green card. You then can play Action Mask if you really want to, because he's just hyper efficient for what a card should be doing. You have these top ends that are super flexible. You can either sit on an aggro top end, or you could sit on like a defensive top end, like
Well, you
in
have
Fate with
Mocha
Rider. But
just
you
out
also
of the
have
box.
Mocha. You just have everything. Same with blue. They have cards that are
Well, blue's big
can send
thing is
themselves.
blue gets a lot of attaching to a color because blue is often the color of the villain in the set.
Yeah.
So to make it
also,
not concurrent with the other characters, they tag blue.
Yeah. Notable that blue has a lot of draw for itself. It has a lot of search for itself. If you like the card Demon Lord of Harl, where it sends itself to memory to salvage 2 effect characters, guess what? There's this one that sends itself to memory to search your deck for 2 mid characters. That's insane.
Yeah.
So lots of cool stuff in these monocolored decks. You could also play red. You can also play yellow. Both of them have super interesting effects as well. Those are just a couple decks. Other than that, play a mono trait deck, play a generic deck. It doesn't matter. If you want to build something, you can do it. It's wide open right now.
Yeah.
I think it's a good format. I think it's a fun format.
I think we should start playing it.
Healthier. I think it's worth your time. Maybe, perhaps, don't spend your money on buying these old singles. Maybe proxy it, play it online, whatever. I'm not going to say anything else than that. Support your local card stores. Support the place that you're playing. Other than that, though, I think it's worth looking into if you haven't ever given Standard a chance. Now is the best time.
And I think now that we actually have a ban list to work with and we don't have to do something convoluted like Calgary Standard, we have... Yeah. I think we can do some standard content, and if we continue to stream either on this platform or do some more interweek stuff on Twitch, we might pull out the standard once we start getting some cards. I think that wraps us up for today. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say fairly well.
Perfect.
To expand, I love the idea of Calgary Standard. Probably not needed anymore. We actually have a real ban list.
Exactly. It's
so much
not
cool
needed.
Stuff. I'm looking forward to it. Love that format. But I think that wraps us up. We covered the new sets coming out. We covered the ban list for Neo Standard. We covered the ban list for Standard. Was there anything else we wanted to talk about?
Nope. I think that's it. So
I think we're good.
I hope that you enjoyed listening to us get hype about cards, talk about a ban list, all that good stuff, because you know what? It was a ton of fun to delve into with you all in our first live podcast recording. Kind of crazy. If you did.
It's a little different.
Yeah, it's a little different. I'm not sure if I think I'll probably do it more for like these sort of hype things where people can have a bit more input. But it's definitely a proof of concept episode. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah, it's a little different.
All right. If you did, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. Search Wild Wild Weiss. If you want to check out our written work, head on over to wildwildweiss.wordpress.com. Follow us on Twitter at Wild Wild Weiss. Check out our other videos on our YouTube channel as you saw it streaming here, or if you're listening to the podcast later, over on youtube.com. Search Wild Wild Weiss, or check out the Calgary Weiss Schwarz community on Facebook or Discord. Until next time, this has been IgorSquatslav.
This has been PlatPlat.
And to all the people who came and chatted with us throughout, Itachi and Kilua, thank you very much for showing up. And I hope to see you guys and all of our lovely listeners later on the podcast next time. And we will see you.